Welcome to another teaching from perfectingtheworld.com.
Good evening. So good to see you. Hello. Good evening. Hello. 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 Good to see you. Hello. So today we had a big announcement that the registration is open for the NT project. It is officially open. And the end of today's session, we'll go over how to register if you've not already registered. And we'll go over why this exclusive invite, 50 seats only, is something that you'll want to take advantage to get ahead of other learners in this space and to be ahead of the curve and ahead of what's happening in the world. Be- Before we go into this learning, we're going to take a bit of a dive into the nature of Torah learning. We were critical last night over how some groups try to use the Torah. We named some groups, and I am learning from some of the feedback that we received that I need to be careful about the way I speak. I tend to be a very hierarchical thinker. I think in terms of hierarchies, classifications. It's just part of my training. It's part of how I think. And when I speak of people in categories, it can sometimes be offensive. Going forward and forward thinking here, I'm going to be speaking uh, more in terms of the Torah pursuant non-Jewish world, rather than using terms like messianic and Hebrew roots and pronomian. My focus is going to be on describing these worlds as the Torah pursuant messianics. Why? Because they are Torah pursuant. The Torah has become part of their world, and they're feeling the gravity of it. Okay, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. I'm here in this space to help the non-Jewish world to connect with Torah more meaningfully. And this is the whole spectrum of the non-Jewish world. I'm not speaking with any one particular sector grouping. This is the entirety of the Torah pursuant non-Jewish world. The world that has woken up thousands, maybe millions across the continents have woken up to the reality of the Torah. They've become aware of the idea that there's actually holiness that exists within this world, and they've embraced that. They've embraced the fact that there is kedusha, holiness, defined by the Torah. And one of the fundamentals of what we learn in the Torah about holiness is in how the Torah was specifically entrusted and deposited with the Jewish people. And let me explain that. These are some verses that we have seen before. This is, first of all, Deuteronomy 33:4. It reads, Torah ziwa lanu Moshe morosha kihilath Yaakov. The Torah that Moses commanded us is the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. The idea of the Torah being an inheritance, it runs directly against the idea of it being a book. The Torah is a constitution and a constitutional deposit with the Jewish people. And I am not going to stand here and beg you to listen to me because I'm a Jew. Okay? What I'm going to illustrate here is the fact that God has done something that reveals deeply into his nature. Okay? This is a verse in Psalms. It says, "Magi devara Yaakov huchav lemishpatav Israel." He declares his word to Jacob, his statutes and his judgments to Israel. Loasa came the kolgoy. He has not done to any other nation. Umishpatim bal yaduum. Hallelujah. And they have not known his judgments. Only one nation in the history of humanity has had the revelation of Sinai and the deposit of the Torah. What makes Judaism broadly unique from any other religion is that Judaism was put into a nation and into a family. Torah was deposited and given to a family. Every other religion lives in the realm of ideation. The idea of concepts, of communities that form around concepts. That's why we often hear the idea of having like-minded fellowship. Where does that come from? the idea of like-mindedness, that comes from a center of gravity in religion that is primarily orbiting around the concept of ideas. Torah doesn't give that kind of a discipline. Torah gives a nation, a constitution, and a vision, and a commission to fulfill. In this sense, Torah Judaism is not just abstraction, it's not just light. It is literally an embodiment. Okay, it is a deposit in a people. I cannot overstate how different the idea of Israel is than the idea of church. Church is immaterial. Church is centered on the idea of ideas, where in contrast, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, have existed as a defined entity with publicly legible boundaries and a defined existence that can be identified through every century of our existence back to Sinai. And when God deposited the Torah with Israel, and even going back to the covenant with the fathers, when God did this, he made himself vulnerable to the agency of Israel. When Israel fails, the project is not succeeding in its optimal sense. God still works through our failures, but God has done something where his name and his honor is literally connected to a physical people, the people of Israel. His honor, his name is connected to Am Yisrael, to the Jewish people, to Israel. And this is why when a person is seeking, whether directly, whether innocently, quite often I think it's innocent within the Torah pursuant worlds, when they are bypassing the Jewish people, when they're bypassing Israel, they are literally bypassing God's vulnerability. When they're bypassing the 3,000 years of Jewish history, okay, and they are ignoring the witness of faithful Israel, what they're doing is bypassing God's vulnerable investment in his people, the people of Israel. And this is difficult to accept. And this is why, if you saw on the Facebook group today, I posted this. This is the Torah Learning Center, and it says, "No Jews allowed." What does this mean? Okay, this is profound. Okay, when I've experienced this with a degree of frequency in speaking with the Torah pursuant non-Jewish world, it's like they want the Torah, but only insofar that they can access it by bypassing Israel. They want the Torah, but they want to keep it de-Judaized. They don't want the Jewish witness. And the closer it gets, the closer their learning gets to the text of the Hebrew Torah, the more likely they are to be opposed to it because it looks more and more Jewish in its expression. The reality is, and I find this quite interesting. I've been accused frequently of promoting and missionizing rabbinic Judaism. Okay. And what's interesting is that I rarely quote rabbinic texts. In fact, when I do quote rabbinic texts, it's usually only in our Mishnah walk class on Sunday. And at least 40, 50, 60% of the time, I'm disagreeing with the rabbinic text. I'm not a very good rabbinic Jew. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. I'm a very observant Jew, but I'm not very good, not a very rabbinic Jew. But what I see happen is that when the Torah becomes raw, when it becomes more present, what happens? When the Torah becomes more present and more raw and more demanding on a person's life, the more likely people are to dismiss it. And that dismissal often comes with a specific formula. Let me show you that formula here right now. 1 second. This is the formula that I see. Okay, I'm gonna give this as a story. You may have already seen this story today. I'm gonna give this as an anecdote. This is a story that the names are made up. You might identify with the story, you might not. But this is specifically an example of how I see this work. And then I'll explain what this means here. Robert has just discovered the Sabbath. He discovered that Shabbat is on the seventh day of the week. He's excited about this reality. He has resolved to align his life around this discovery. He calls his mom and says, I'm starting to keep the Shabbat. His mom responds to him and says, but you don't have to do that. That's Jewish. Robert's mom's statement there, that's Jewish, is a statement of dismissal. 5 years later, Robert is part of a community, part of a fellowship. They get together to learn, they sing, they pray, they share aspects of their lives together. Robert now is married, and him and his wife discover Exodus 12:16, and Robert comes under the conviction that cooking on Shabbat is prohibited. Him and his wife decide to stop cooking on Shabbat. He mentions this to Sally within his congregation. And Sally says, but Robert, you can cook on Shabbat. That's not work. That's Pharisaic. 2 years later, Robert is growing in his walk with his wife. They discover that there's a Torah commandment against starting fire on Shabbat. And they realize that this would apply to the car. And so they decide that they are going to stop driving on Shabbat. This is a difficult adjustment to make, but 10 months later, they have stopped driving on Shabbat. They have found ways to align their life with the Torah commandments, and they're still part of their fellowship. Joe, a member of the congregation, finds out that they're no longer driving on Shabbat. And Joe says, but Robert, you need to be careful about not adding to the Torah. That's rabbinic. A year later, Robert and his family have embraced this reality of Torah. They're feeling close to each other, feeling close to the God of the Torah. And they learn about Nevela. Nevela is meat that's not been given an altar slaughter or a kosher biblical slaughter. At the community meal after the Shabbat service, Robert and his family pass on the chicken dish. However, Emily notices that they don't eat. Emily approaches Robert and says, you don't have to keep all those man-made rules. That's Talmudic. I want you to notice the pattern here. I'm going to go back to the big slide. The pattern is this. That's Jewish. That's Pharisaic. That's rabbinic. That's Talmudic. These are all formulas of dismissal. And in the end, each of these formulas are really the same statement. They are all the same. They are all a dismissal of the Jew. The reality is that the primordial separation between the church and the synagogue, to use the standard terms, happened because of the dismissal of the Jew. That is, a dismissal of the living Jewish presence, of learning from the Jews. And this is why we are operating. This is why Perfecting the World Mishnah Walk. This is why we are here. We are here specifically because we want to be a bridge. We want to help the non-Jewish world feel a sense of belonging in their Torah practice. We're looking to create a space of belonging, of community, of identity within the boundaries of Israel's Torah, within the biblical boundaries of Israel's Torah. What I mentioned here with these different formulas of dismissal is that you'll notice at no point was Robert doing anything Pharisaic. He was doing only biblical things, like the Pharisees did, by the way. And he was not doing anything rabbinic, nor was he ever citing the Talmud. But what you notice is that the layers of resistance, that illustration, I call it the onion of opposition. Those layers, they all express differently. but they're all the same statement. That's Jewish. I'm telling you right now that this is a spiritual kickback. Not everyone is ready for the Torah to be unsheathed. In fact, truth be told, very few are, and that's fine. Or if you have come to learn the Torah is requiring more of you, you don't need to rush into the next level of practice. If you have discovered that driving on Shabbat is not what the Torah has in mind, I'm not telling you to stop driving on Shabbat. Everybody in their own time and place in their journey. These are discussions actually that we can't even necessarily have at this space at this moment. And I want you to be careful if you are feeling some of these things, to be careful at how you take them into your world. The Torah is meant to bring order and structure. It's meant to bring civilizational order to households, to families, and to a nation and to a people. When the Torah comes into your world and it becomes disruptive, be careful. You might be moving too quickly. You might be misunderstanding your obligation to the Torah. Okay, these are things that I want to be careful in how I display them and how I express them. Robert's story may not be your story, and that's okay. Robert's story is only an anecdote to illustrate a point, and that point is the dismissal of the Jew, which is a very significant challenge. As we're moving now into the NT project, okay, I want to share a few pieces with you. The NT project is specifically geared, okay, at allowing the reader, allowing the learner to move into a Torah disciplined reading and ways of reading of the New Testament. One of our fundamentals here as we're working on this is the assumption that the Apostle Paul was a Second Temple Pharisaic Jew. We're assuming that he was a student of Ramban Gamaliel, who was on the Sanhedrin. We're assuming that Paul never left his Pharisaic practice. We're assuming that he never left Torah. What we're going to be learning with Ephesians 2 is how to read the NT with Torah disciplined eyes in a way that the NT does not bend Torah into its orbit, but so that the Torah stays in its own integrity and the NT has the opportunity to fall in line into the orbit of Torah. Okay? And we're going to be doing a positive and critical reading, laying down Torah foundations, capturing the messianic vision of Paul, capturing the apocalyptic vision of Paul. And that might truly, truly inspire you as you learn what that was. Perfectingtheworld.com. This is where you will need to register for those who have not. I'm going to show you right now how to register if you have not already signed up. I have pulled up here. This is the website. This is perfectingtheworld.com. And if you're not already registered, this is what you will need to do. Okay. Go to perfectingtheworld.com. Go to, one moment here. Go to Get Started Now. And you will need to go to the All Access membership. Okay. This is an exclusive opportunity. It's exclusive because this includes all of our classes and learning. And I'm telling you right now, this is specifically for serious learning and discovery. This is for serious learning and discovery. This is not for everybody. We will, in learning this, we will be ahead of the curve. I can tell you that right now, that many of your favorite teachers will be learning this from us. And 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you'll be hearing it from other Torah pursuant teachers. Okay, it's coming here first. We're preparing for what's coming, and you're going to hear it here first. This is our invite. There is a seat waiting for you. You don't have to walk this journey alone. There is a Jewish presence, an observant Jewish presence, who takes the text of the scriptures seriously. And I firmly believe that the text has a depth that will reward the patient reader and patient student. We want you to be able to rediscover the text that you think that you already know. And we want you to discover joy in the process and learn to overcome the chaos of all these different claims that are out there. If your heart is turning to Torah, this is the right place. We invite you to subscribe, to learn with a community that's not afraid to ask difficult questions. We invite you to come learn and walk with us. As I mentioned, there is a seat that is already waiting for you, and we look forward to having you join us. Let me just mention one more time on the options here. At the $36 a month, you will have access to all the archives, the Mishnah Walk class, the Torah Tuesdays class, the live Q&A, the discussion forums. We have more projects and more classes coming as well, too. There's a depth. I don't know how many hours we have already stored up here, but we have hours of classes already present in our archives of learning, of serious learning. And I do think that you will incredibly benefit and grow from this opportunity. Okay, I'll be back on tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We're going back into the discussion about Nevela. But I am just so excited here. I had to interrupt our programming to make sure that you knew about the perfectingtheworld.com registration for the NT project. Again, only 50 seats for this exclusive content. This content will not be put into the public. If you want to know what's happening behind closed doors, you have to sign up. Okay, there are no exceptions. I will say one exception. If you are interested in sponsoring a scholarship, there are some individuals that want to join that cannot afford. If you want to sponsor a scholarship, please drop a comment or send a message, and we can arrange for you to sponsor a scholarship. Have a fantastic end of your week. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Join the perfectingtheworld.com community today.